Picture this. A quiet afternoon in a small town park takes an unexpected turn when a pair of female officers approach a calm, confident individual who knows their rights better than most. What starts as a routine request for identification quickly escalates into a tense standoff. The officers, firm in their authority, are determined to enforce compliance, but they're met with a steadfast refusal backed by a deep understanding of the law. The crowd begins to gather, sensing the tension in the air. Passers-by whisper, some pulling out their phones to capture the moment. Each question from the officers is met with a calm but firm response, and it's clear this isn't going to be an ordinary encounter. Who will stand their ground? Who will back down? And what will happen when the stakes get higher? This isn't just about ID. It's about knowing your rights and standing up for them. Stick around as this unexpected confrontation unfolds in a way no one could have anticipated. By the end, you might just look at your everyday interactions a little differently. Let's dive into the showdown that's already sparking debates across the internet. As the back and forth intensifies, the crowd watches in stunned silence. People can feel the tension building in the air, an invisible line being drawn between personal rights and authority. The officers, though calm on the surface, exchange glances, perhaps questioning how far they can push. Their usual responses don't seem to be working. The individual they're confronting remains calm, unwavering, every word measured and precise. It's a standoff that's becoming more than just a simple exchange. The person knows the law, has prepared for moments like this, and isn't intimidated by the badge in front of them. But why are they so confident? What's behind this seemingly small refusal? As the minutes tick by, it's clear that this is no ordinary ID check. It's a battle of wills. Nearby, a few bystanders murmur, unsure about how to react. Some sympathize with the individual, others with the officers. Yet no one can deny the intensity of the moment. It's a test of knowledge versus authority, and everyone seems to be holding their breath, waiting for the next move. What will happen if the standoff continues? Will the situation escalate further? And just how far are the officers willing to go to assert their power? Stay tuned, the next part of this encounter promises to reveal everything. The tension is palpable as the minutes drag on, each word exchanged between the individual and the officers adding more fuel to the fire. The officers, while trying to maintain their composure, can't help but feel their authority slipping just a little bit more with each calm, reasoned reply. For the woman in question, it's not just about refusing to show ID. It's about asserting a basic right, a challenge to the routine they've grown so used to enforcing without question. But the officers, in their own minds, are standing on a thin line between doing their job and being seen as overstepping. One officer begins to get visibly frustrated, her voice rising slightly, demanding compliance. The other tries to remain professional, though there's an unmistakable edge in her tone. They're both aware that, in moments like these, their actions are under a microscope. Every move they make is being scrutinized, not just by the growing crowd, but by anyone who happens to be recording. From the bystander's perspective, the situation is more than just an ID check gone wrong. Some view the individual's refusal as an empowering statement, a stand against overreach. Others wonder if things could spiral out of control if the situation doesn't resolve soon. With every passing second, the dynamic between the officers and the person they're confronting shifts, growing more complicated. What's the right thing to do here? Is compliance the easy route, or is it worth pushing back, even if it means making a scene? As the standoff continues, it's clear that this moment is bigger than just this one interaction. It's about authority, personal freedoms, and the unpredictable ways these encounters can unfold. The air feels thick now, as if everyone's holding their breath. The officers grow more insistent, but so does the person standing their ground. The back and forth is getting louder, more intense. The crowd, once quiet, is now murmuring with growing anticipation. Phones are up, capturing every word, every gesture, as if this moment might shift the way people think about their rights and their relationship with authority. One officer's patience finally snaps, and her voice cuts through the tension. "You don't get to make the rules here," she says, her words sharp, demanding immediate compliance. But the individual's response is calm, almost eerily so. "I'm not required to show you anything unless you have a reason," they reply, their tone unwavering, yet somehow more composed than the officers. It's as though the power in the situation is shifting. The officers begin to look at each other, clearly uncertain about how to move forward. One gestures toward the squad car, signaling for backup. In the distance, sirens wail, a sound that sends a ripple of tension through the crowd. But instead of resolving the situation, it only heightens the uncertainty. The individual locks eyes with one of the officers, holding their ground, their face unreadable. The moment feels like it's teetering on the edge of something much bigger. Will this escalate into something more? How far will the officers go before they've pushed too far? The crowd grows silent, unsure of what's about to happen next, but certain that whatever it is, it will leave a lasting impression. As the sirens grow louder, the tension seems to reach a breaking point. Just as the officer signals for backup, a new voice cuts through the air, sharp and authoritative. A man standing in the crowd steps forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. His appearance is unassuming at first, casual clothes, but there's something about the way he stands, so confident and steady, that catches everyone off guard. He approaches the officers with a slow, deliberate pace, his eyes focused on them. The crowd holds its breath, unsure if this is an ally, a concerned citizen, or someone else entirely. "This is escalating quickly," the man says, his voice low but firm. He's clearly not afraid of stepping into the situation, but why now? The officers hesitate, their eyes flicking between the man and the individual they've been confronting. The person who's been refusing to show ID seems to recognize him, and for the first time, there's a flicker of something: uncertainty. Recognition. The moment of pause feels like an eternity. The tension in the air grows even thicker as the crowd waits for the next move. What does this stranger want? Why is he suddenly inserting himself into this volatile moment? His appearance only makes the situation more unpredictable, and just as quickly as he appeared. His role in this encounter feels like it could shift everything. Is he here to diffuse the tension, or is he about to stir the pot even more? The stakes have just gotten higher, and now, more than ever, no one knows what will happen next. The crowd watches in stunned silence as the man steps closer, his eyes now fixed on the officers, who are clearly thrown off by his sudden presence. The officer who had been most aggressive hesitates, her hand still hovering near her radio. It's clear she's uncertain now, unsure whether to escalate or to de-escalate. The stranger turns to the individual who's been standing their ground the entire time, nodding in silent acknowledgement, as though they've shared this moment before. Without warning, the stranger pulls out a badge that gleams under the bright sun. A murmur runs through the crowd. The officer's expressions shift. The man isn't just a random bystander. He's an officer too, but with a different kind of authority. The tension in the air shifts in an instant. "I'm with Internal Affairs," he announces, his voice clear and authoritative. "I've been watching this interaction, and I'm going to make sure the proper procedures are followed." The officers freeze. Their faces harden, but they know there's nothing they can do. The dynamic has shifted entirely. For a moment, no one speaks. The individual who had refused to show their ID now looks to the stranger with quiet relief. The officers, realizing their mistake, begin to back off, their body language telling the crowd that they've lost control of the situation. As the internal affairs officer signals for them to step aside, the crowd, which had been on edge, begins to disperse. But before anyone can breathe easy, the unexpected twist hits. The officer from internal affairs turns to the individual with a sharp look, his tone suddenly cold. "You'll be hearing from us again. This isn't over." And just like that, the story takes a turn no one saw coming. The encounter may have ended for now, but the real consequences, it seems, are only just beginning. The crowd, though momentarily relieved, knows this is far from the last chapter in a story that has only begun to unfold. As the crowd disperses, the reality of the moment begins to settle in. The tension that had gripped the park slowly fades, replaced by a sense of unease. For now, the individual has won this battle. They stood firm, knowing their rights and having the courage to assert them, even in the face of authority. The officers, though, are left to reevaluate their actions, their pride bruised. The internal affairs officer, still watching from a distance, turns to walk away, a quiet promise hanging in the air. For the individual who refused to show ID, the fight may not be over, but they've made a powerful statement. This isn't just about one incident. It's about a larger conversation on personal freedoms and the role of law enforcement. As the sun begins to set, the park slowly returns to normal. People walk away, talking quietly amongst themselves, their thoughts heavy with what they just witnessed. The cameras, once focused on the confrontation, now capture the aftermath, the subtle shift in the air as people reflect on the day's events. What started as a simple encounter has sparked something deeper. It's a reminder that in every interaction, there's more at stake than just following orders. Sometimes standing your ground can make all the difference.